holding. I know I got a few on most of the assignments back. There were different kinds of approaches used. Most assignment was finished in different ways. So therefore, if you want to tell me what was your challenge, or if you have any questions before I start going through the assignment and showing a solution. You were supposed to use a delegate, and the delegate was for the text field, and I will show. It's very similar as what we used. Which delegate did we use last time for the alert? Similar like that for the UI text field. There are some delegate methods which I will show. The UI switch, a property rather than an outlet. A property is an outlet. The outlet is just another specifier which tells the NIP file, the interface builder, that you can access those properties. But there is no difference in property or outlet. Okay. So I assume there is no other question. Okay. Oh. Scott, what do you mean this new macOS? You upgraded to the Maverick? Okay. I'm not sure if there is any update for Blackboard. There could be issues if you, since it's a new system, it could be possible that Blackboard doesn't support it yet. So do you get any error messages, or it just does not launch and you can't see anything specific? Unable to load up. Okay. That is some sort of an indicator that Blackboard won't work yet on Maverick. So I hope that not a lot of you guys installed Maverick. It could be possible that maybe the 2 or 3 which are missing, maybe they did install it. Hmm. I don't have right now a solution for that. So since I would need to look into or ask also check if there are any issues with this Maverick. Pattern design, you mean design pattern, like the model view controller design pattern or the delegate design pattern, or what do you mean with pattern design? Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean with interface pattern, but I will basically teach everything what you can do with developing for iOS. So the different types of user interfaces, the different ways of creating an application, since right now there is one way of doing it, which we're going through by creating applications using nib file based application. So you can also be backwards compatible, or if you get an application from somebody else and you know how to update it or read through it. The new way of doing it with the storyboards, I will be teaching that next week. So everything you will need, if I hope that was the question, I will be teaching that, and it will step by step it will fall together. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I need to ask the tech if, because we have an issue with some update to Maverick, and students are not able to log in into Blackboard if there are any known issues with Blackboard and Maverick. I will just give me 1 second.
Hi, Professor. Were you talking to me, by the way? I'm sorry. I had other people talking simultaneously.
Sorry, yes. We had, just before you log in, we had a question from someone in the class that there are issues with Blackboard and the new Mac OS Maverick. We get that the application cannot be launched, and Blackboard literally does not launch. Is there anything known? I mean, I know Maverick just got launched just these 2 days, but should it still work?
Well, let me help you answer that question by illustrating something in the background with your permission. Okay, so
Sure.
Let me see if I could use, hold on 1 second, sorry. Let me see if I could do that app share if I have the credentials to do so. If not, please give me the credentials to do so, and I'll be more than happy to demonstrate it.
Sure. Let me just get out of...
Yes, because you are using yours. I'm sorry. It'll just be a second, because I know you're a very good app user. I have seen your YouTube video, so I by the way, I definitely have to download that application. That card thing is fantastic. So let me just show you for all the Mac users here. Give me 1 second. Okay. And let me see. Bear with me. I have classes in the background. So I don't want to put you into a class. I want you to see on my screen. So, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's give it a shot. Hold on. trying to find out which one it is. It's not showing my window that I want to show. And I'm sorry if I'm holding up your class. I don't want to hold it up. But I'm going to try my best to demonstrate it, okay?
Okay.
Tell me if you see this window right here that says Blackboard Collaborate. Do you see that window offhand? Or do you see your class?
I see my class.
Okay. Here's the situation. I'm actually right now on OS X Maverick right now, and I'm using Chrome. Okay. If the students are having problems, okay, logging into the class, they need to read the instructions here that simply states the following. Have you downloaded the Blackboard Collaborate launcher? If they have not, they should click on that to download. And then what's going to happen is, this is the application that automatically converts the file to the collaboration file, and then it will automatically open automatically. Okay? So that's key.
I think it's not really sharing your screen what you were saying, because I only see the left part of the Collaborate.
Okay, so that means you're seeing your screen. So I'll tell you what. Let me just get out of the sharing. All right. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to launch this in the background. Actually, I could better than that. Hold on. I know what to do. I'm going to open up the file for me. It's a PDF file. Give me 1 second here. I apologize for the interruption. You know, like they said, they got places to go for people to see, and, you know, it's very important that these students know what's going on. So, let me just reduce the screen. All right. Just bear with me for 1 second. I just got to utilize the space because I hate to crap this up and then no one can read this. Okay. Let me try it again so I can show you guys. There we go. All right. Do you see this PDF right here?
Yes, now I see it.
Okay, wonderful. What happens is that the students need to do, they need to automatically download the Collaborate launcher. That's automatically when they click on the class. They got to read the subscription. There's a little purple button that says, you know, download. It's an application that replaces the original install for the file conversion. Pretty much in a nutshell, I'll just sum up in plain English. It's a file that converts the Java file into a Collaborate file so you can launch it. So anybody who's using Lion, Snowline, and Maverick, they should have this running on their browser. Okay, whether it's Safari or Chrome or Firefox. Windows users are not affected to this. It's strictly Mac users. Okay. When they do that, there should be some sort of preference they can read in there directly, and I'll give them this documentation, how to go about it. Okay?
Okay, we'll try it out.
All right. I'm so sorry, dear guys, to go through that problem, but you know what? You know, I had a couple of people asking the same questions, so forgive me. So I'm just trying to juggle everybody all at the same time.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem, man.
Okay. Scott, I guess you'll just try to reinstall it or download it again. So now we just go ahead and we can see then if you're able to join this Collaborate on your Mac. Okay, so I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through this example. Or the solution. And in my solution, what I have is I have a text field. And when you type into this text field and you hit the return button, the keyboard will disappear and the text out of the text field will be taken. It's the same thing what happens if you would click the Tell Fortune button. And based on these two toggle switches, the text will appear. If I have it off, it's going to be a negative fortune based on this switch, we will change the fortune. And another thing what is added here, if I switch the random fortune to on, that is negative. Yeah. Well, I should have not put my name in there. So if I switch the random fortune to on, instead of using the positive and negative fortune, I'm using from an array of strings. I wasn't really creative of typing in what fortunes there are. I'm just printing out random 1, I think, through 12. And then you might ask, what are register observers and unregistered observers? Because in this application, what we did, one more thing, and I'm going to show you that afterwards, is if you go in your settings application, what we're going to be adding is settings for your application. And those settings, we will have them here as well. Based on these settings, we will be able to preset these switches. So now let's go to the code. Just waiting until the screen appears. What we created here is a simple single view application based on a NIP file. And this was very exactly the same application as we did last week in class. We have in the app delegate, we're just setting the root view controller. And that's all we have in app delegate. And now in the view controller we're using, we have different properties and different actions. We have the name field, we have the label, where we will be showing the fortune, and we have those two switches as well as properties, but IB outlet, so Interface Builder knows about those properties. Then we have some actions, random changed, positive changed. These are linked to the switches. When you change the state of the switch, the functionality behind these will be called. Tell fortune, the button which will be telling the fortune, unregistered observer and registered observer. We have another method declared called refresh, and I'll get to that in a second as well. Going into the implementation file, I'm going to scroll all the way up. We have in let me go there where we need to go. Register next. Here. We have random switch. When the random switch is being changed, what we're doing is we're saving the switch state to a place which is called the NS user default. NS user default, we're keeping that state. It's kind of a context. You know it from Java, like application context or session context. And this is something similar like the application context. So you can save different values to NS user default if you want the app to have access to it at any time. So this, the settings application has access to those as well. So that's why the only thing what we're doing here is we are saving the value. And one more thing we're doing is I created a separate method, enable positive switch, and I'm going to go there. So I'm checking if random switch is on, and then I'm setting the state for the positive switch so it's disabled, so the user cannot change it. Going back to the simulator, I'm going to illustrate that here. If random switch is on, you see the positive switch will deactivate. And that's all what this functionality does here. I'm just enabling or disabling that switch. Then going back up here, this is just a method to return some random fortunes. All the assignments submitted to the Dropbox, you guys did similar approach, where an array and then you create a random, you get the random string out of it. That was not an issue as far as I could see. Now, here's one thing which is important. Text field should return. You are not creating that on your own. The text field should return is a delegate method. And this delegate method comes from, and I'm going to go to the header file quickly, from the UI text field delegate. So this, I didn't see this much implemented. What the delegate is used here is, as I mentioned before, when I type and hit the return button, that's where the delegate is used for. So if you don't implement the delegate, it will be really difficult to hide the keyboard from your screen without having access to the text field should return. In text field should return, what we do is we resign. Can you short circuit the keyboard entirely? Not understanding exactly what short circuit the keyboard entirely means. So it doesn't appear. Well, the thing is with text fields, you want the keyboard to appear. The only way to you would not have any way to type in or to do anything if you don't let the keyboard appear. There are two states of the text field. It's called become first responder. That's what is being called when you tap into a text field. And then resign first responder is when the focus out of that text field is being taken away. I'm not sure if this answers your question, John. Oh, no, even in the simulator, no, you can't. You can't. So now the text field should return. What you would do here is you will call resign first responder on text field, and you will call tell fortune is the same functionality which is being called when you press this button. Now there are two things. In tell fortune, since it's being called when the button is pressed as well, No, I'm going to get there, Jemima. The random object is a method which I created through a category. I will explain it in a second. I left it out on purpose. So, okay, so the method tell fortune is being called in two ways. When the user hits the return button and when the user hits the tell fortune button. What happens here is we're just checking, is it a random fortune, and then we're getting out of our random fortunes array a string back. We're still using the name. Otherwise, if it's not the set for a random fortune, we're checking if positive fortune is checked, then we'll show a different string, otherwise another string. Whatever this string becomes at the end, we're showing it in the label. And I'm still calling self dismiss keyboard. This is nothing else than resign first responder, just since the button needs to resign the first responder as well. The difference between this self name field resign first responder and the text field resign first responder is that here this method text field should return will be called on any text field on your screen. So let's say you have here multiple text screens. You don't need to know which one is active because the delegate knows which one is active. So whichever is active, it will resign the first responder on that text field. If you're tapping a button, we don't know which one is active. So in case you would have 4 text fields in there, you would have to call resign first responder on each of those text fields. That's the difference in creating your own dismiss keyboard. This is our own dismiss keyboard. Now, let's go back here to random object. In random object, what I created is a category. I created an object, NS array, but since NS array is from the Foundation framework, but we can categorize it. I typed in random in parentheses, and then I can extend this NS array. What I do with this functionality is, and I'm returning ID, since I can use it on any NS array, I'm not returning here an NS string, I'm turning an object. This random object will get the count and will just returning some random object out of that array. So creating a category like this makes it possible for you to just on any array, like here in our fortune array, on any array to call random object. Then you see here you don't need to specify anything different. You just use NS array as you're used to, and you just call random object. And why it doesn't know that this method exists is at the top of this implementation, we import the header file. So this is how you use categories. You want to extend a functionality of an existing Foundation class, but you don't want to necessarily subclass it. You want to just extend some functionality. You create a category. Now, this is as far as the assignment was. So just to create some random fortunes to show them on the screen, take the name and show it in combination with some fortune, and have a toggle button, positive and negative. We had last week, we implemented a button. The switch has a bit of different functionalities, but I saw you as well figured that out. And the switch is on value changed. So the button we saw it last week, it's touch up inside. The switch is value changed because it's anytime you tap on a switch, that value changed, and based on that value of the switch, if it's on or off, you do something. Now, one more thing for a UI text field to work with the delegate. When in the NIP file, when you tap on this text field, you'll see in outlets, you have here the delegate set to this text field. So the file's owner knows about this text field. If you would have forgotten this, to set the delegate of the text field to self, then the application would not hide the keyboard because it just does not know about that functionality. It's the same as what we did last week with encode for the alert view. We set alert view dot delegate to self. The same thing you can do on a NIP file in Interface Builder. You can either link this delegate outlet to files owner, or you can do it in code. It's always better if you have an Interface Builder file and you have elements on Interface Builder to set the delegate in here instead of in code. If for the alert view, we did not have in Interface Builder any object, so we had to set it in the view controller. And just a reminder how we did set it. We just pretend that we haven't set the name field delegate, and you'll see here, you would just set it to self. This does exact the same as if you would set it in the NIP file. Any questions? Okay, I assume everything is okay. I don't get any questions. Now, the next thing is what I mentioned with the settings. If you create an application which is supposed to have settings in the settings application of your phone, right here, all you need to do is create a new file, and I'll show you this new file. It's called Settings Bundle. The way you create the Settings Bundle is by just creating a new file, and you will see underneath iOS and resources, you see a template called Settings Bundle. Actually, yes, if you would like, yeah, it would be good if you create based on what you have. If you create now with me the Settings Bundle, yes, we can do that. Or you can just create a new Actually, let's do something else. In Collaborate, I've uploaded on the Dropbox different templates. Those templates are all MIT-file-based applications. Since I don't want to go ahead and do everything right now with storyboards, so you get first to know how things work with MIT files, and anyways, even with storyboards, you're going to need MIT files as well. If you can download out of the Dropbox I created the templates, there are 3 templates. There's a single view application template, there's a master detail application template, and the tabbed application template. The single view application, that's what you will need right now. So in case with this Fortune app, not everyone has a working project, you just download the single view application template and we'll start from there, and we'll create the settings bundle. And once you have it downloaded, please check in Collaborate here the button, so I know that we are at the same template. Yes, this is in Collaborate under Dropbox. And it's the Dropbox is called Week 4 template. Single view application, right? You just open the file called single view application.xcode project, and it will open it in Xcode. It's just the template is a single view application, and instead of like a multi-view or like a tabbed or a table view application, it's the same structure or template as we used last week. But again, you can use the one you have. If you have a working project from last week's assignment, you can use that as well. It's not necessary that you use exactly the project I'm using. I'm going to give you maybe 2 more minutes, and I'm going to continue with creating the settings bundle. Xcode should not prompt you to upgrade to iOS 7. And if it does, you don't need to. Word Okay, so you are, are you using Xcode 4.6 maybe? Okay, if you're using Xcode 4.6, you don't need my template. You can just create a new project and select single view application and create your own new application. And then uncheck storyboards, but keep automatic reference counting checked. So everyone who uses Xcode 5 should open the template, Xcode 4.6, create a new project, the single view application template. Don't use the Dropbox template if you're using Xcode 4.6. Okay, if it prompts you on Xcode 5 to update the file, just do it. That's fine. But you don't need, yes, in Xcode 4.6, uncheck storyboards. You don't need to do anything else. I'm not quite sure what software update they would really require, because you can just ignore any software upgrades. Yes, got that. You can say yes to it. And you can check when you get that upgrade message in Xcode 5. You can check there should be a check mark. So you don't need to do that, or you are not getting asked every time you open a file which is on an earlier version. Okay. That upgrade message is literally just when you click on the NIP file, and if you get that message, just accept that upgrade. It's not going to take. It's going to take just 2 seconds, and everything will be exactly what you see right now on my screen. You don't need to upgrade any other files. So once you have this open, you can create a new file by either using the keyboard shortcut Command N, and there you will have the template screen where you select resource and you select the settings bundle. When you select the settings bundle, you hit next, and Xcode automatically suggests that you save it as settings.bundle. You should not change that, since that will be very clear that that is your bundle, which will go in your phone's settings application. Let me double check how it says in 4.6. In 4.6, it says settings bundle as well. If you create a new file under resources, it says settings bundle as well. It's the exact same icon as you can see in a second on my screen. You see the selected icon? That's settings bundle. Yeah. Okay. Once this file is created, you will see that it is not a regular file. It is more like a package. And in this package, you have the packages, the folders for the languages, and then you have a plist called root plist. This is the property list, which will be used to show in your settings application of your phone. Now, we haven't really done anything yet with it. We haven't created anything. We haven't changed anything. If I run this application, let me run it on this screen. This application is completely empty. There's nothing on the screen. Not showing. Can you see the simulator? Okay, let me unshare. Okay, now you should be able to see the simulator. It probably takes a little second. Okay, and you see my screen is empty. And my screen is, I don't have any UI elements, but if I go out of the screen and I go into the settings of the simulator or phone, and I scroll all the way to the bottom, I see now single view application, and I just see that I have a typo in there. Well, and the single view application has some settings in there. Those settings are the default settings, what you get when you create a new there's no way I always get stuck because don't have any other buttons. So you don't have this home button on your simulator. Let me try to... Okay. Lost audio. Okay, does everyone have the settings for this application? Yes, yes. Okay. Can you all use the green check mark if so just so so I know who has it so far or not? Okay. Linda and Charles, you don't have the settings yet? But you do have the settings bundle in your application. Okay, you can get to the home screen. You go, click on the menu hardware and select home. Okay. Okay, at this point, I'm just going to continue, and since it's really just simulator related, what you're having issues with, but I'm going to show how this property list looks like. So we see in the simulator, we saw this group, we saw name, we saw this toggle, and as well the slider. The way it looks in the settings bundle, settings bundle is literally an XML file. It's a property list. You could even open it as source code and you'll see the plist is an XML file. You could change it even like in XML format. It's not really recommended, but since it's much easier to work with a plist format in here. Now, you'll see here, let's say for this toggle, the type, it's selected, it's a toggle switch. The title is the title. How do you see the source file of the plist? You right-click or control-click on the file, and you can open as source code. I forget that every time I right-click, you see a blank screen. So, yeah, you control-click and then open as source code, and then you can see it in source code. Right-click doesn't work. If right-click does not work, it's not set up on your Mac, but control-click should always work. So the identifier is the name, the keyword, how you can access this property. Now, I'm going to switch to the Fortune app, since there you will see what our plist contains. We have the group, which we don't really necessarily need, is the title of that group of settings. If you have multiple settings groups, then you just add the title as the group. And the title and title you would type in whatever you need, and the type is group. And then in our Fortune app, we have two toggle buttons. The first one, the identifier, is Random Fortunes, and the title, we called it Random Fortunes. It's a toggle switch. The second one, Positive Fortunes, and the title. We can also set a default value, if it's yes or no. And going now back, this is all you need to do for the app to show in your settings application of your phone. Now, going back to the view controller, if you see this now, NS user default, standard default, Boolean for key, and then we're looking up the key Positive Fortunes. And this, the value for this key, we're setting the switches on or off state. Same for the Random Fortune. If we're changing it, we need to write it back to the default, user default. So what we do is, we're getting the user default, and we're setting the random switch on for the key random switch, and we're synchronizing the default. That's all we need to do to write back to the user default. So what would then happen is this. Let me to close the simulator on the other app. Now, if I check this button here, my settings application for Fortune should have the same button and the other way around. You see, when I switch, I'm reading the button, that actually the settings, the user default settings, I'm reading them back, and I'm pre-populating this switch. Now, there is one more thing in this design pattern, which we will be learning right now new, and that is the registering an observer. Usually, you know, when an application goes into background, and that basically happens when you hit the home button, the application is still open and it's in the background. So when you open the application out of the background again, at this stage, the application usually does not do anything but show the last screen. It does not refresh. It does not do any actions. So, and you can see that if I type in here my name, and I'm not doing here anything, I go back in background, and I have exact the same state again. So for the user to make sure that the screen is updated, especially the switches, we need to implement something called a notification center, an observer on a notification center. And the way that works is we have a notification center, and we're getting the default center, and we're creating, the functionality is add observer to self, to this controller, and we're going to be calling a refresh. We created this refresh function, and whenever UI application did become active, notification gets called, this refresh button should be called. And the refresh button, all it does is it sets whatever positive fortune and random fortune, it just refreshes those two switches. If we would not have this, you can change in your settings of the application anything you want. It would not update your screen. So we'll see this here. We change it in the settings. Going back to our application, and it should upgrade. Sometimes when you are still in debug mode or still connected with Xcode, the simulator might react a little different, but these observers work. Now, every time you register an observer on the notification center, you also need to unregister it at some point. So the best place to unregister an observer is when the application is dismissed. So where do we have this? Fortune dismiss. Okay, I don't have it here exactly. So, but the way you unregister an observer is by, on the notification center, default center, you remove the observer from self, and with a name become active notification. This notification is being sent by your application delegate, and you know where it's being set, because it's called UI application did become active. And if you look back in your app delegate, you have here a functionality called application did become active. So this application did become active is going to be called every time the application comes back from the background. It becomes active, so any view controller in your application would get this notification if they registered to listen to it. A template which works in 4.6, you really don't need one because you can create your own. You only need the template for 5.0 because in 5.0 you only can create applications with storyboards. So if you need to create in 4.6, you just create a new project, select single view application, uncheck storyboards, check automatic reference counting, and that's it. Give it a name, and that's exactly the template what you'll have. Okay, but I will give you this application. I will drop it into the Dropbox, so you have it as a reference. You can look through it, how this is really working with the settings. And of course, afterwards, if you have any questions to it, you can let me know. But this is all what I wanted to add to this fortune cookie. Adding settings, because you might have some applications where you don't only want to have your settings inside your application, but also outside. So this is the way you would do it. And just take a look if you want to read a little bit more about the NS Notification Center and the NS User Defaults, because those are the two new things I just went through. Everything else is from last week. Any questions to this? Okay, if there are no questions to this, I would go to the next topic, where I will be going through creating an application with the table view. And since table views are really the most important part of creating iOS applications, I have multiple steps, and I will as well provide them afterwards, all the steps and documentation to what we're going through with it right now. And the starting point is our single view application. So you can use that application you can use the single view application for what I will be showing you with table views. Now, there are different ways of creating a table view application. The way I'm starting off with is a flexible way where you don't only have a table view as the main view of your application, but you still have a UI view, a regular UI view, and we're dropping a UI table into this UI view. And I will also explain the reason why. Let's search for UI table. If I drag a UI table into this view, I can arrange anything else on this screen. It does not need to fill the entire screen. You could be having other elements on the screen. Let's say if you need some buttons here on the bottom of the screen. So if you need anything else on this screen other than the table view, you create it basically this way. That's a UI view. What I just did is I placed the table view onto the screen. In my view controller interface, what I need to implement is I need to implement some delegates. And the UI table view has two protocols I need to implement. Once the UI table view delegate and the UI table view data source. Both protocols give different functionality which you will need to display data into a table, and you will need to communicate with that data. For now, this is all we need here, and until now we have created, I think manually, these properties. So let's do some connecting. I'm going to show the assistant editor. The assistant editor shows me the header file on the right side of this MIP file. And what I will be doing, it should show the header file. If it doesn't, you can switch to the header file. What I will be doing, the control click into the table view and drag to the header file. You see this connection? You see the blue line? Once you see this connection to the header file, you can let go the mouse, and then it will ask you to create this outlet. I'm going to call it table view. And once I hit the connect button, Interface Builder will create a property as an IB outlet of UI table view with the name table view. Now, we know we have to set a delegate. We said before that for the UI text field, we have the text field on the Interface Builder file, and what we did is we connected the outlet delegate to our file's owner. The same thing we need to do for the table view. We connect the delegate for the table view by dragging from the circle into the file's owner. The same we do with the data source. We click into this circle, we drag to file's owner, and then let it go. And you will see in your outlets, you have data source connected, and you have the delegate connected. So far, we have everything done in Interface Builder, so our data source, delegate, and the table view itself is connected to the properties. Now, going back, if you're not seeing delegate here to connect, you make sure you have selected the table view on this side. If you have selected the view instead, you don't see any delegate. The data source and delegate outlets are created automatically for you if you implement those protocols in your view controller. We implemented UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. And then in your Interface Builder, when you select the table view, you get the outlets shown. If you have selected the table view and you don't see outlets at all on the right side, check if you have selected the connections inspector. Maybe you're in some other of these 5 or 6 inspectors. Make sure you have the connections inspector. Sure. I'm going to unconnect the delegate, the data source, and the delegate again. So you see when an outlet is not connected, you see that it does not have the outline around. You see over here the table view is connected, so it has this outline. Now it's not connected. You don't see the little dot in the circle. The way you connect the data source, you click in the circle and drag it to the file's owner. And then let it go. Again, click in the circle, drag it onto the file's owner, and let it go, and both outlets are connected. So, okay. Now, what we will need if you run this application, it's not going to work. You're going to get you're going to have a different error messages because we need to implement different functionalities now that are required. So, and you'll see that even Xcode tells you what are the required methods you need to implement. Let me see. What did you connect to get reference outlet? Make that again. Reference outlet. We connected reference. The reference outlet is when we created the property for this table view. So you'll see the table view as a property. You can either just create it this way by typing in property and then table view, or by using the assistant editor and clicking into the table view. Control clicking into the table view and dragging into your header file. And that's how you create an outlet using the interface builder. Okay. Okay. In now your implementation, what we will need to implement is since we know it's on table view, and we will need number for rows number of rows in section. And this comes from the protocols we implemented. Number of rows in section, we get an integer section. And in this particular example, we don't have multiple sections. So we are just going to return an integer value. How many rows do we have? Now, we figure that we need to show something like an array. And what I will be showing here is I will be creating an NS array in viewDidLoad. Actually, not in viewDidLoad. I'm going to create a property right here. I don't need to create a property with the getter and setter on the header file because I just need it right in this implementation. And this array, I have then now access to this array, table data, and the number of rows in section is going to be the number of the count of my table data. Of course, we haven't initialized this table data array, which we still need to do in our viewDidLoad. And in our viewDidLoad, table data, and I will be adding an NS array this object this is not filling it. Array with object. And another one, 2, and this will return number of rows in section, the count. In this case, it will be 2. Now, we're still missing something. We need cell for row at index path, and it's also on table view. And on table view, we have cell for row at index path. And this method cell for row at index path is responsible for showing the row in this table. What we need here is an identifier for the row, and I will explain in a second what an identifier is. I'm going to call it cell identifier and just name it cell. And now we need to create a UI table view cell. And a UI table view cell is going to be from the table view, and there is a functionality on table view. It's called DQ reusable cell with identifier, and we will be passing this cell identifier. So what it now means is, since every table has multiple cells, they all look the same, we don't need to create a UI table view cell for every single record. We dequeue it from the table. The table view does know about, actually a table reusable cell. The table view does know about the reusable cells. If there is already one created, this identifier, the table view would just return that. So we don't have like hundreds and hundreds of UI table view cells created. This is the way to get it from the table view. But of course, if there is no table view cell for this identifier, we need to check this. And if there is no table view, we need to create a new one. So we are creating a new table view cell. And in it, what we are going to use is init the style. And you have multiple styles for a table view cell available. We are going to be using the default style. And we have available UI table view cell style default, subtitle, value 1, value 2. Most of the time you will be using default or subtitle. If you need anything more than that, in the next few steps, I will show how you create your own table cells, the custom design, but these are the ones which are the standards. And we set the cell identifier. So now what we have here is, if the table view cell is already available in our table view with this cell identifier, we're going to use this. If not, then we're setting a new one. We are initializing a new table view cell, and we're setting the reuse identifier to this table view cell. Now, all we need to do is, on the cell, on the text label, we need to set the text of the table data. Table data, object at index, and we have the index path of this table view cell, and on the index path we have a parameter called row. This is all we need to set the table view cell text to the text in out of the table data array. Since this method cell for row at index has a return, expect a return type, we are going to return the cell. So again, we have the identifier. We are looking up in the table view if we have a reusable cell. If not, we're creating a new one, and then we're setting on that cell the text label from the table data. Now, let's run this application. This is what you should see. You should see an application with a table view in there, and with the objects, the rows showing based on the table data array. Are you seeing all? Were you able to follow this? Do I need to repeat? Okay. Yes. Cell for row at index, it's going to be looping to this number through. It's going to expect some object, whatever number the number of rows in section returns. So it's not necessarily really on the table, on the array. So if you would return here a wrong number, it will only expect, let's say, that number, and then it's up to you how you fill the cell for row at index. And to make it clear, I'm going to show this. So now it shows 10 rows, and each row I'm printing out test. If I use the table data count, I will see only 2. Everything else would be all ignored. If I do this, it's only 1, and I'm showing from the table data array, it will only show 1. So those 2 methods are really the most important if you are showing any table data. Number of rows in section, cell for row at index, they go right together. Right. So yeah, this is really the simplest, and really to remember, and it's most important how it works, because sometimes even developers who worked for a long time with iOS, they just by ignoring the identifier, they get into a situation where the table view reacts differently. So the identifier again is if you are showing a table cell which looks exactly the same as the next. All table cells are looking exactly the same. That's where the identifier belongs to. So if you have a table which you have different styles of table cells, for each style of a table cell, you need to specify an identifier. So, but usually table cells are all the same. So the cell identifier, you set it any type, any name. That's your choice. Now, you are looking up in your table view if there is a cell available to be dequeued with that identifier. So what is being returned here is either that UI table view cell or nil. So if it is nil, we're creating a new. So we're initializing this style. We're using the cell style default in this case, and we're setting the reuse identifier to the exact same what we're expecting later as well to be the reuse identifier. And that's it. And then you set the text label. Now, if I had here subview, subtitle, what I could do is there is a detail text label. Make sure it's text. The detail text label is the text underneath the main label. So it's in different font sizes. You'll see this also a lot. For example, in the mail application, you have the subject and you have maybe 1 or 2 lines of the actual email. And if you disable the detail, you just have default, and it's just the title. In this case, since there are 2 rows, in the very first time, this will be returning nil. So, and what we're going to do is I'm going to print out an NSLog. And when I print out an NSLog, you will see this is only going to be printed out once. Should print it out once. Oh, probably because I changed it. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I actually have to double check this. Why this should be only run once. That's the idea of I'll double check this, but yeah, this should be run only once, because after this DQ reusable cell with identifier. That's correct. Okay, I think because it's you see, I'm returning 100, and it's not printing out 100. So what is being done is literally whatever you see on the screen. So I have to double check this because, like I said, it's I'll get that answer. It should not be running more than once enter here because we don't need to initialize. No, this is the way the table is being populated. It's really, there is nothing else you need to do. This is the way tables are being populated. But I'll get to the answer with when the UI table view cell is being created and when not. Okay, now on the default table view cells, you have also the ability to set an image. And let me see what image I have here. I don't think I have any image. So I'm going to import an image. To the application, and the images I will be using in our in this applications, I've uploaded those images as well to the Dropbox. It's a zip file with some images. Okay. This is the image I will be using. And the way you work and set an image is with UI image name, and you just pass the name of the image. So what would happen now, every single row would have the same image because you hard-coded it. So if that's basically the standard layout of the tables. If you use standard, if you don't use anything specific, that's all you need to do by setting the text label and by setting the image view. And you don't need any positioning. Well, in supporting images make sense to be in supporting files. What I like to do is create a new group, call it image or images, and add all images into this group in supporting files. So if you end up having like hundreds of images in your application, all the images you have are underneath images. And you can group different files into different sections. Of course, this application has now only 10 files maybe, or 15 files, but you might have much more files in your application and you want to like organize them. Yes, there's no path issues because you can see here, we're looking for an image with name. We're never telling it where it is located. That's why it would be an issue if you have two images with the exact same name. That would be an issue. because then Xcode doesn't know which image do you need, and it goes for any file if you're not if you don't have any possibility of specifying a path, and you can't literally, because it's all based on the names of the files. It's not based on any path or any file system. So you can even move the files. The only thing what you cannot do is, and I'll show you this. Let's say I'm showing this in Finder, and in Finder, you cannot see the Finder. Let me see if I can share that as well. Okay, now. So you see, this is some sort of, yeah. This is the content of your folder in Finder. And you see it does not have any, even though we created here a group, images, in Finder you don't have it grouped. You have everything in one level. So now, let's say you have created a folder images and you have moved. You cannot see this part, but I'll show you this in a second in Xcode. Now you see here, there is an image folder. And in this image folder, I moved that image into. Going back to Xcode, we will have a problem with that, because Xcode was not informed where the location of this file is. How do you fix that is by going either, if you have created an image folder, you click the group, and you can select here. Right now this has no folder, but you can select then the folder you created on your file system. And everything in that folder would be then linked correctly. So whenever you see any file in red, all it means is Xcode does not know where it is. You click on it, and you will see on the right side on the files inspector, you see where Xcode expects that file to be. Okay, I'm going to go back to the code, and I think I'm going to leave the code screen open here, because I think we can take a 10-minute break. Yes? Okay. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay. Guess everyone's back. So what I did in the meantime is just I filled a few more table data, and now I do have the answer to the when is the cell really nil. And the reuse, so the cell should be reused. So meaning when the application runs and we see the cells, cell 0 will be reused until cell 12. This application has more than 12 cells, so you can see, I'm not sure if you can see the log file. Let me try to make it fit better in the screen. So you see the log, and when I scroll, it has a few more, it added one more row. But now, after that, when I scroll, those cells have been already loaded, so they will be reused. So it does create a UI table view cell for each row, but it does not create it every time you scroll. It only creates the ones you see on the screen. So everything what you see, that is being created, and then when you scroll, everything else will be just reused. So what we will be doing next is, and we will be creating a custom table view cell. The way you do that is, what we will be using is a init file for a table view itself. So if instead of having just the title here and the image here, we want to have the image in a specific size. We want to have not just the title, we want also, let's say, the preparation time or any other information. Okay. To make the image folder visible again, I'm just going to create again the group images, and I moved this image inside images. If you just do it in Xcode, Xcode knows still where it is. Now, if you moved it, and just you can't see that part. So Xcode doesn't know where it is anymore because I just moved it again from the file system. And by selecting that folder and going into the files inspector, underneath location, you have a little folder icon, and that's where you click in and select the folder you created. You select this folder, and all the images inside that folder will be connected back so Xcode knows where they are. So, okay, so back to creating our own custom table view cell. We will be creating a new file. And we will be selecting user interface, and we will be selecting empty. This is an empty interface builder document. It does not have yet any view, any nothing. It's just empty, and that's what we need. It's for iPhone. Clicking next, and then this file needs a name, and we are going to call it Simple Table Shell. Calling it Simple Table Shell. I'm saving it in the root folder of the project, and you will see now we have a init file, and we have no element, no UI view. Usually when you see a init file, you see a UI view at least in there. But we created a completely empty one because we need to create a table view cell in there. So what we do is we just drag and drop a table view cell in this init file, and that's all what it has. So you can adjust the size of this table view cell. Let's say we go to 80, but not just only by dragging and resizing, but you can also use your what's called size inspector to set the size of this table view cell. So let's say it's going to be 80, and you have to make sure you set it in both the row height and the layout height. Now, what else do we need here? We need some labels, because if we want to have just this table cell as our new template, we need to add some labels in here which we want. Let's say this is the name. Then we need another label. Prep time. But what I'm doing is I'm using a label, and I'm adding the actual another label where the value of that time is going to be placed from our app. I can also change the font size and add an image. Of course, I'm not making it 100% because that's what you can do then after the class. So I have all the labels in place, and this is how our new table cell layout will look like. Now, we only have the init file, and you know we will need the class now for it as well. So what we'll do is we create a new file, a Cocoa Touch and Objective-C. An Objective-C class, and we're going to name it exactly the same. And UI table, and it's going to be subclass from UI table view cell. We have simple table cell is the name, and UI table view cell. Going next, we select the project folder, and we have a class which implements the mandatory functionality for the UI table view cell. We don't need to do anything with the init, the styles, or set selected styles. We don't need to do anything there. We see here in the interface Can you still hear me? Okay, because for some reason I got an issue. Okay. Was I gone for a while or just for a couple of seconds? Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, you see the simple table cell is subclassing from UI table view cell. So now what we need to do is we need to connect the NIF file to the class. And the way we do that is that's called the file's owner. And the file's owner, I'm just going to move a little bit around here. The file's owner, right now, since we created the NIF file just as a very single file, it is classed from NSObject. But we do have simple table cell. We have a class called simple table cell, and that's what we are going to set here. So the file's owner where did we go? The file's owner, the class is simple table cell. Now, when we go now on the assistant editor, we see, let me move a few screens around so you see a little bit more. We see it shows us the simple table cell. We move to the header file because now what we need to do is we have to connect all these labels and the image. We have to create properties for it. So we actually only need 3 properties. We need the image, which I'm clicking the control, clicking into the image, and dragging into the interface file. And I'm going to call it, how did I call it here, just to make sure. Okay, thumbnail image, and I'm connecting. The name, I'm going to call it name label. And I'm going to call the time label. So now I have this 3 properties in my header file, and the header file, the class is connected to the NIF file. That's simply all we need to do. Now, going back to our view controller, what we need to do is, instead of using UI table view cell, we need to use simple table cell. Of course, this Xcode does not know about simple table cell because we need to import the header file. Once we import the header file, simple table cell is available, and we also need to replace it inside the if. But now, instead of using cell text label and using cell image view, we use cell name label text, and I can just copy this. I just want to keep the previous way in there and comment it out so you see the change. And instead of image view, I'm using thumbnail image. Now, all we changed is from, and I'm going to copy this best table. All we changed is we're using, instead of UI table view cell, we're using our custom cell, and same here. Instead of UI table view cell, simple table cell, then we are not using text label and image view because we have created a name label, thumbnail image, and what we also need is cell time label, and I'm just going to add it's static because we don't have yet the array for the image and the time label. Now, if I run this application, I should see not much, because we did forget something. Simple table cell. Okay, we did forget one little thing, because table view DQ reuse identifier will return a UI table view. So we need to add simple table cell here as well. Now we should return this table cell. Oh, okay. Okay, missed that point. This is a little different. Since we created our own NIP file, we have to actually get all the NIP files, get all the views out of that NIP file. So let's do this. NIP. Bundle. Load NIP name, and we have owner self, and we have no options. And then load NIP name, and that is the cell. NIP 0. So we actually have to do it this way. Now we are receiving an array of views by loading from the main bundle the file with the name simple table cell. And the first object in there is our table view cell, and that's what we will be using. Shall I? We have the NIP, we have the simple table cell, the owner cell, and from that we take the first object and we have everything we need. Yes, there's still the reuse identifier. It's I'm just not setting it in, actually, yeah, the reuse identifier is, in this case, not set in code. It is set in the NIP file. And the class is here, and the identifier is under Attributes Inspector. We set the identifier right here. Since we're creating our own custom class, the identifier is set in the NIP file. So it will still use EQ with that identifier. It has to be exactly the same one here, but we don't need to set it specifically in code if the cell is null, since the simple table cell NIP file has that identifier. And the way it would look when we run this application, we have the images, we have the name, the prep time. I didn't set any time here. But running this now, you will see each of them has prep time 30 minutes. And of course, like the image, we have a separate array with all the images. Oh, you can't? Okay, let me share, unshare and share again the app. Simulator. Now you should be able to see it. Okay, so one thing we haven't, right now, we only have used methods, number of rows in section, and cell for rows at index path. Those are methods of the UI table view data source. So simply how the data will be shown. But we haven't yet implemented any method of the UI table view delegate. And some methods from the delegate are when you click on a row, you want something to happen. So if you only implemented self-award index and number of rows in section, you're perfectly fine show a table view, but you have no interaction yet. So, and the delegate method, which you need to click on a row, is did select row at index. Did select row at index has here again the same as the self-award index, has the index path. And we already know how to create an alert, and how you get now the cell from the table view is by, if you need to change on the table views, if you need to change anything on that table view, you would get the cell for row at index. In our case, we could also use simple table cells just to be consistent, and we'll need to add it like this as well. So we can, if you need to change anything on the labels you created or image you created, but all what we're doing actually here is setting the accessory type to a check mark. What accessory type means is, you'll see that in a lot of apps, this little area here has, you can have there a check mark, you can have there a, what's it called, an error. Table view. So accessory. UI table view cell accessory. You have checkmark, detail button, detail disclosure button, and disclosure indicator. So one is new, it's the detail button or detail disclosure button. So before there were only three. The detail button is now new. It's the info button. Before it was a little blue arrow in iOS 6. In iOS 7 they added now an info button. Then you have, why is not my keyboard working? Okay, usually this control and the space button, you should be able to get the autocomplete from Xcode, but for some reason it's sometimes not working for me. So yeah, you have the disclosure. The disclosure indicator you see a lot in applications where you want to show the user that there is, if you click on that row, that there is a detail view. Usually, if you have a detail view, you should show this error. If you don't have, or if the user needs, it's just like a way to show the user that there is a little bit more. But going back to our check mark. So what we're doing here is every time a user clicks on the row, we're showing the alert, and we are setting the accessory type to a check mark. Of course, what we are not doing here is if the user clicks again of that same row, we did not log which rows are already selected, because that you need to do yourself. Xcode or iOS does not give you that functionality that now it was checked before, now to uncheck it. So you have to keep track, you have to create an array and keep track on the rows you selected. And that's all what you need to do that in the view did select row at index. The last line, what I have here, deselect row at index, is usually when you select a row, it is highlighted, and you'll see it here. Before iOS 7 it was in blue, now it is in this gray. This is a highlighted row, and since you don't want to keep that highlighted row, but you really just want the accessory type, the way you remove the highlight, you deselect the row at index path. And you'll see when you do it, I mean, on the screen I'm sharing, it's probably not as visible, but once you have it on your Xcode, you will see when you click on any row, it for a little bit, it is highlighted and then it disappears. That was all in here with the delegate method. And one thing as well, we have here height for row at index, because we need to set the height of the rows the same as the height we created our custom cell. This is all that I have here. And okay, now okay, there are a few more delegate methods, and I will just open yes. So right now what we have is we can select a row, but what we need also to be able to do is delete a row or like edit a row. I'm going to show the deleting part. So simply when you swipe in a row, you want to be able to see the delete and also be able to click that delete, and that item will be removed from your table. Now, all you need to do is where is it? In your table cell, in your table view nib, you have editing style. Where is it? Selection separation. Actually, that's not where it is. It's by simply implementing commit editing style. by implementing the method from the delegate, commit editing style. On the table view, commit editing style. In editing style, you enable that functionality, and what we need to do is just remove from the array the object at that index path which we're editing. And one more important method to be called is on the table view itself, we need to call reload data. If we don't reload data, then we're removing the objects from the arrays, but the table view will not reload. So whenever if you would scroll then up and down, your count of the table wouldn't, and your indexes wouldn't be correct anymore. So you need always to do the reload data. And just to show that this is really the functionality needed. So you see now I just commented out that functionality trying to swipe, and I can't since that functionality is not available. And I'm going to show what happens if you don't call reload data on table view. You swipe, you get the delete button. With deleting, but nothing happens. So nothing is refreshing. And as soon as I try to reload other data by scrolling up and down the table, Xcode doesn't know, or iOS does not know that index does not exist anymore because it's deleted. So that's a sign of we missed something. And reload data is most of the time the issue. That's how delete basically works. With reload data, what happens is number of rows in section and cell for rows at index will be called again. In this case, yes, I have explicitly to remove thumbnail, prep time, table data, because I have it all in separate arrays. So if I would not remove thumbnail and prep data, what would happen is table data will be removed, but you'll see the images did not move up. So if I delete another one, click delete, the images didn't change. So I still have on thumbnail the same index. Of course, this is not really the perfect way. If you have a list like this, you get it from either a properties file or a database. Anywhere else, you wouldn't have 3 different arrays to represent one row. So this is really just simply to show based on an array, or even here, what we're doing here is we're reading those arrays out of a property list. And here again, the same with the image. We have we look up the plist we created. I have it pre-set up, and that's I'm going to send that as well to you guys. So the plist is recipe plist, and this plist has those different arrays. Of course, with these different arrays, what you can create is actually one array with dictionaries in there per row. But to go back here, this is how we read a plist into a dictionary. We get the path of that plist, path for resources, and the resource name is recipes, the type is plist, and it doesn't matter where it is in our project, we will receive the path to that file. Then we create a mutable dictionary and initialize it with the contents of that file. We need to have this as a mutable dictionary because we're deleting data. And the same for the arrays. Those arrays are all mutable arrays, and since if we would not have a mutable array, we would not be able to remove an index, to delete any data out of those arrays. You have any questions? Should I repeat anything? Okay, what advantage to create a customized and own table? Like all tables, what you have what you see out there in other applications are most of the time customized table cells, because you get into a situation where just an image on the left side and a label is not enough. If you have more than 2 values to show on a table cell, you want to create your own customized table cell. And you can see it as well here. We have a specific position for the label. We have a specific position for the prep time, and we want to be able to show different values in there. Of course, this is just the title and the detail title, but for example, like Facebook has table cells, but those are completely custom, and they have sometimes images in there, sometimes multiple labels, and depending on the content, you can then change the table cell. If you use just the standard, you get very quick to your limitations. If the standard is all you need, of course you don't need to customize anything. But with the standard, you wouldn't be able, like to, let's say, put the image somewhere else. If you need to add the image anywhere else in your table cell, you wouldn't be able to do that. Or like multiple, like more labels. Okay, any other questions? On the smart use of table view. I would say most of applications out there are based on table views. Every time you have data coming from a database, from any API server, you are displaying data, it's a table view. of course, like where you don't use much table views is in games, or if you're using a map application or a camera application. But anytime you need to display data, that's all based on table views. Going to the device itself, most of the apps Apple delivers, like even the messages, the text messages, it's a table view. Yes, we will. We will be doing location and maps as well. So, but yeah, like I said, even an application which you wouldn't think it's a table view, the Messages app, the text messages app is a table view application as well. Any chat app is a table view application. Yeah, most of them where you show more than one record in the same way are all table views. Were you able to follow most of what I showed, or do most of you have a working table view application right now? Okay. Okay, it's really not an issue. It's just for me sometimes also better if you can follow. It's not really necessary that you follow completely, but I will drop in the Dropbox all the documentation of the step-by-step of those samples in different sections, in different parts, so you can really follow it, and you can either try based on the documentation just to follow it and reference and try to create the project on your own. Again, like for those who are using Xcode 5, please use as a starting application the template I created. For those who are still on Xcode 4.6, you don't need the template. You just start off with a new single view application, and then can follow as well the reference. And I will also, all these, I think there are 4 different steps what I went through. I will zip them up as well and put them all in the Dropbox with the PDF for each of these sections. So you can, with the PDF, you can follow it, create it on your own, and then take a look at the zip file and just compare what you've created and what the solution is. As of assignment, I will just add to this what we went through today. I will just add a few more small things, small functionalities which you can add on top of it. It's not going to be a separate project. So I'm going to be just adding a little bit of some functionalities which you can create on your own on top of these table view applications. Yes, the steps are in the PDF. I will upload there completely itemized. Yes, you start the assignment using the template. But I'll make a note once I create the assignment. I'll make a note there as well and point you to the right template. And if you make the note about 4.6 Xcode and as well Xcode 5. What do you mean with all the possible error sources? So like pointing out that if you don't have the identifier that it could cause an error, like something like that? Yes, there are different notes about what the error sources are. Of course, there are not every single one, like all possible ones, because you could be just mistyping something and or like not implementing a method and that causing an error, or like instead of removing from one array, you're removing from another. It's really not possible to put everything together what the error sources could be, but the most common, they're in there. Yes. Okay. Since we do have a few more minutes, do you have any other questions, or should I go into and show any of these files so you can take another look? I'm seeing Albert has his chat icon on for a while, but I'm not seeing any. Okay. Next week we will be starting with storyboards. Since everything after next week, so by now we kind of got the idea how it works with the NIP files. And NIP files, other than having a little bit more lines of code, they're actually simple. Whereas and storyboard, we will be going through and starting with storyboards next week. We will be having less code, and it might be easier to see all the interface files in one place, but it's just a few more steps or a few more information what you will need to work with storyboards. So you will be having simply storyboards are a collection of NIT files in one place with a few more functionality, and that's all we're going to go through all of that, and including tab bar application as well. No, you don't need Xcode 5 for storyboards. Xcode 4.6 allows storyboards as well. Yes, the files should be available to download still. If for whatever reason they're not there, just send me a note and I'll take a look. What I'm doing is I'm creating for each week different Dropbox folders, which one is where you guys upload your assignments. The other one is where I will be uploading solutions. And there's a third one per week if I'm uploading any like references like this, what I just said for today, the PDF and the sample project I will be uploading in a separate one. You download from resources if it's general, but the thing is, if I upload everything from to resources, it's just very difficult to see where it belongs to. Let's say I upload a solution for week 3, and at the end, like after 3, 4, 5 weeks, we have so many resources, and there you'll have a difficulty scrolling through there. So you should be able to log in Epsilon and go to the Dropbox, and you should be seeing there are multiple Dropboxes. By just clicking in that Dropbox, you should be able just to click whatever file is in there and download it. Thank you. Have a good night. Good night, everyone.